All right, welcome. This is Andrea with the ADS Agency, here to bring you the very best in marketing and branding tips, as well as business tips for those of you who are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and personal branders. Welcome, and I'm so excited to bring you my special guest today, Alicia Butler-Pierre, who's with Equilibria and also businessinfrastructure.tv. She's got an awesome podcast. I've been on her podcast, which I feel so honored to have been on because she just clearly interviews the best. And so if you're not listening to her podcast, be sure to check that out. And where can they find info about you, Alicia?
You can actually find info about me in a number of places. If you're on social media, my channel on YouTube is Business Infrastructure, or you can find me directly under Alicia Butler-Pierre. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, as well as Facebook.
Awesome. So everywhere you are. Okay, and so today's topic is really about, I love having this conversation with Alicia because it's always about what I do, which is branding, marketing and branding. And on your podcast, we were talking about how marketing is really a lot of what you say, and it's the promise that we give customers. But people often think marketing is a bunch of BS and fluff, right? Because it sounds like lies, and it ends up being lies ultimately at the end of the day if you do not back it up with your operations and you don't fulfill on that promise with what you do. This reminds me of really one of my very favorite marketing and branding quotes of all time, and it's by Waldo Emerson, and maybe he didn't even mean it to be a branding quote to begin with, but that's how I view it. And so he says, "What you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say." Mm-hmm. And so we view what you do, that's your actions, that's how you operate, that's your fulfillment of the promise out there. Are we delivering on what we say we're going to do? And what we say is all the marketing. Marketing is giving the promise. So we say we're the best, and we say we deliver, and yada, yada, yada. If we don't, no one's listening to you anymore because, you don't actually do what you say you do. So that is the ultimate branding quote. We were just talking about before about how that's so important to bring the two together.
Absolutely.
Because when what you do with setting up business infrastructure and systems and processes and all of that, those are the things that make companies tick, right?
Exactly. It's the unseen. So another way I like to describe it is marketing has a lot to do with the things that you actually see on the surface that's related to a company or you as an individual brand. But the operations is what's going on behind that proverbial curtain. What are the things that are taking place in order for you to fulfill that marketing promise?
Exactly. And so this is one of the biggest things I want to talk to you about today is because you and I both encounter a lot of solopreneurs. Mm-hmm. And so many of us, the vast majority of businesses out there that start for sure typically are solopreneur, yes. One man, one woman operations, and you're going to be that for a while until you can scale up to start taking on your first employees. Yes. And so how have you seen, and you often encounter businesses when they're at that point of growth, which is very painful. Yes. We want to mention your book as well.
Okay.
Don't forget to do that.
Okay.
Plug it wherever you like.
Sure.
But how can solopreneurs get to that point where they are growing to take on their first employees and all that? What do you think are some of the best tips operationally to prepare them well to get to the point where they can scale and need to hire someone like you to help take care of their processes and all that?
I'm glad you're asking this question because I hear the terms growth or we can help you grow your business and scale. They're used interchangeably. But really, when I think about the work that you do, Andrea, it's really truly about helping companies grow. You're helping companies grow by attracting more customers or clients to that particular business. What happens though when you have so much business? You've been working with Andrea and now you have all of this business. Can you actually keep up with the demand for whatever it is that you're selling or offering? And that's where the scale actually comes into play, because right now you may just be a 1 or 2 person operation, but as the business is growing and you realize you need to scale, which truly means taking it to the next level, you have to start hiring more people. One of the first things that I recommend doing is that you go through a really exhaustive exercise of figuring out everything that you have to do in the company so that you'll know exactly who you can outsource or hire other people to do for you full time. A lot of times we think also that scaling up means we have to actually hire full-time employees, and that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot that you can actually outsource. In fact, I recommend if you can outsource first, that kind of helps you dip your toe in the water.
Gotcha.
Just to understand that, make sure that you have the processes that you need to explain to people how to do certain things. But then when it gets to a point where, because there's pros and cons, right, to all of these things, and we can talk about that if you'd like, but then you can graduate maybe from outsourcing to, okay, maybe part-time, now eventually full-time. That's what scale actually looks like.
Gotcha. See, this is why I needed her on, because this is the stuff people need to hear. I sincerely know so many people who are in that space, they're like, how do we do it? How do we do it? And they feel lost. So that's a great point, that you don't have to hire even part-time or full-time yet. You can work on outsourcing first.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it helps keep your costs lower.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's say we did that part, and we're solopreneurs, we're outsourcing now. What are some of the problems you start seeing even in outsourcing, in that outsourcing area? Is that a time where people should be focusing on their processes?
There's pros and cons to all of these things. A major setback when you're outsourcing is that you're not the only person that they're doing work for. So if you, for example, need a quick turnaround, let's say you have a new order of some sort and you need to quickly get these orders processed, and you're relying on this person that you've outsourced a major chunk of that work to, you may need that done within 48 hours, but that person may tell you, well, Andrea, I'm sorry, but I won't be able to get to that until next week. That can be a challenge with outsourcing, because typically you're not going to be the only person that they're doing the work for.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you have to deal with their pipeline.
Exactly.
And it's not all your pipeline.
Exactly. And you can't get angry at them. So it's really up to you a lot of times to really plan out the work. If you're in a position to do something like that, where you can say, okay, I'm going to need, and this is just something very simple, but I know I'm going to need a new logo designed for this particular project. Well, I know that if I outsource this to this particular person, that person needs at least a 1 or 2 week window in order to receive the request, actually do the work, and then there's going to be some back and forthing to make sure it's up to your standards before the work is actually complete.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Okay, so I like that, thinking through time frames and getting ahead of that.
And that's with big companies too, by the way, because a lot of times I have a friend right now who actually his company works with Procter & Gamble, and we know Procter & Gamble makes so many different types of household products. His company, Procter & Gamble, believe it or not, actually outsources the physical packaging of, let's say, Tide laundry detergent or different cosmetics, different shampoos and conditioners. They actually outsource that to third-party companies. That's not a function that they do in-house. So don't think that it's beneath you, I guess, to outsource, because even the largest companies that are out there, they all have these massive vendor networks of other companies that they work with.
Yeah, Ah, okay, well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book we're reading right now, but you guys can read it with us. I don't even know if you've heard of it. Alicia hears about every book. Every time I talk to her, there's people and books I need to be. There's people I need to be looking up and connecting with, and books I should be reading. It's true. And so there's a book now that we're reading called The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs.
Oh, wow. I have not heard of that one.
Finally, something I can recommend to her.
Tell me more, Alicia.
I think you would like it. It's A Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. It's by Hal Elrod and a guy named, I need to get his name right, but it's Cameron. I can't remember his last name at the moment, but I will plug it here for you so you can see his name there. But Hal Elrod is just an amazing person. He's probably our age, and then he died several times. He got hit by several
several times?
Yeah,
Okay.
he was clinically dead. You know, people get clinically dead for
yes.
several minutes at a time. So he was hit by a drunk driver at 70, 80 something miles an hour head on.
Whoa.
And was dead for at least 6 minutes or something ridiculous like that. Was told he would never walk. His pelvis was crushed. All kinds of things were crushed, with that kind of impact. And he ended up walking again anyway. It's so very interesting. So not to go in a rabbit hole down to his story, but he also was diagnosed with cancer and was told he only had a 30% chance to live. And so many major organs were shutting down. I mean, the young guy, so his liver was shutting down and his lungs had issues, all kinds of things major stuff you need to live were shutting down in his body, and he had 30% chance to live. And the doctors were talking to his parents, one of these scenarios, I mean, these are both scenarios where he basically died or almost died. And they were talking to his parents, and they were like, you should talk to Hal, because we're not sure that he is lucid or something up here. He might be in denial about his situation because we don't think he's grasping the severity of it all, which was so untrue. His dad went and talked to him, and he was like, son, the doctors want to check and make sure you do understand what's happening to you. He's like, yeah, Dad, but why? And basically he told him, I know what's happening to me, but I've just accepted this is something I can't change, and I'm working on the things that I can change. And what is the point of being miserable and depressed about it? Because
so true.
It's just my new situation now.
Yes.
So
if it's
he gives himself 5 minutes to be pissed off about stuff. If something crazy like that happens, even cancer, he gives himself 5 minutes to whine and complain and all this and kick a ball or whatever. But after that, it's okay, can't change it is his favorite phrase.
Yeah.
And what can we do to move forward? So anyway, he's just phenomenal for that reason. And then is known on the business side for breaking all these sales records. He was really big into Cutco, which is a knife industry.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And broke massive sales records for no reason. He just loves breaking records. And so it's all about, his whole mindset thing in business. So the book, he has all these miracle books, but this one for entrepreneurship, he wrote with the guy in Cameron, I believe. And I say all that to say, I think it's quite intriguing to listen to their ideas on entrepreneurs and what you can do in your morning to set your day and even your business on the best path possible, and really how to get massive, miraculous, so to speak, results.
Yeah. So it's all about mindset. Yeah.
But they do subscribe to that philosophy, and the Cameron guy was there as a specialist for the entrepreneur side, but he does subscribe to that philosophy about, I think something you said about writing down everything that you have to do.
Yes.
The tasks you would have to do in a given quarter, in a given year, and seeing what are the things that someone else could do.
Yes.
That are menial, that are $10, $15 an hour kind of jobs.
Right.
They talk about using VAs for that purpose. And then what are the things that even you're excellent at but don't necessarily inspire, motivate you, energize you to do. You just happen to be excellent at it, but it doesn't mean that you love it.
Right.
Love it.
Yeah.
So they're saying analyze all your tasks like that, and then just focus on the ones that are your genius area, so to speak. So the stuff that really can't be outsourced, so to speak, or maybe it could, but it's just the area you love the most,
Right.
And generate the most revenue because of it.
Right, exactly.
They're saying focus on that area and then shift all that to other people, the other 80% that is whatever.
Can I share something? So something else that an analogy, I like using analogies. So, and I think your audience would be able to relate to this. So think of one of the most famous entertainers that's out there today, Beyonce. So we see Beyonce, right? We have no appreciation for the team that is behind a Beyonce. So Beyonce clearly is not booking all of her own shows. She's not scheduling interviews for herself. She has a talent manager. There's an entire crew, team of people, an entire staff that is taking care of all of these different tasks. Now, of course, when she first started out as a teenager, and it was her parents helping to do a lot of the heavy lifting, but when you think about it, it was really just her mom, her dad, she's the talent, but her parents were doing a lot of the work in the beginning. But as her popularity started to grow, as she started to get more gigs booked, she started to do movies, your team, that's when you realize, okay, now I need to scale up to that next level. And you have to have the right mindset to piggyback off of what you were just talking about. So just kind of keep that in mind. A lot of times, I always like to use entertainers as analogies just because we're so familiar with so many of them and it's very easy to relate to.
Oh yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah, because certainly someone does that fantastic choreography.
Exactly, yes.
Hair and
she's not doing all of that herself, right?
Feeds her right.
She focuses on her talent, at what she's good at, exactly what you were just saying. And then she has a team of people around her who all work together for the benefit of showcasing her talent, really.
Exactly. So, I love that. I don't think about, how celebrities pull it all together.
Yes, exactly. We just see them, but we have no idea, again, we have no idea what goes on behind the curtain of us enjoying whether it's a concert or a movie or a theater, whatever it may be.
Exactly. I love that. So, solopreneurs, personal branders, think like Beyonce, perhaps, like the queen. And perhaps you can take some tips from how she pulls her awesome team together, and how you can pull your awesome team together for your business. Alicia, this has been so great. I really want to thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Sharing your awesome tips on growth and scale, the difference between the two, growth and scale, and especially for the solopreneurs out there. And so before we go, I want to make sure they know about your book, because this was a sincere effort on Alicia's part to pull this book. It was like the labor of love for her last year. Just tell us what that was like even writing the book, because we have people in the audience who are interested in writing their first book. I'm writing a book, and not quite the level
it's an undertaking, though, right?
Oh, yes.
Because you have to be in the right mindset, especially if you're producing a body of work where you're really trying to teach people how to do something. There's all kinds of different books out there, and we all know that, right? So for me, writing the actual manuscript, that was the easy part. What I did not have an appreciation for was everything else. The editing, the illustrators, the indexer, the laying out the book itself, and how certain things have to be done in a certain order. You can't skip steps. And so for me, just as a really quick example, I remember working with the illustrator, and I asked if she would also design the cover of my book. And she said, okay, sure, no problem. I said, okay, good, we can get that going. And while the lady who's actually doing the typesetting, actually laying out the pages of the book, so while she's working on that, you can be working on the book cover. And she said, well, actually, I can't do that because I need to know how many pages the final book will be. And I said, okay, why? And she said, because that's going to help me determine the thickness of the book's spine. And so she said,
therefore the design.
Yes, for the design. She said, I don't want you to pay twice for a service. She said, yes, I can design it, but then you're going to come back to me and say, oops, actually the spine needs to be thicker. So let's just wait. And of course, when you're just trying to get something
you just want it done.
You just want it done. And I think that was the most difficult thing, was not having a real appreciation for the fact that certain things had to be done in a certain order. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so now tell us about the book itself and where can they find it and all that.
Okay, sure. The name of my book is called Behind the Facade. And the subtitle is How to Structure Company Operations for Sustainable Success. The reason I call it Facade is because, whether intentionally or not, as a result of working with Andrea, you have this great marketing, you've created this persona of not only yourself, but your business as well. All I'm suggesting is that the image that you project outward, make sure that the way you operate on the inside looks just as good as the image that you are projecting on the outside. And so what this book does is it actually uses stories that are based on actual people that I've worked with. Each character in the book, there are 6 different stories. Each character represents, I would say, a composite of about somewhere between 5 to 7 people that I've actually worked with.
Nice.
And yes, so that was an interesting exercise, trying to, mask as many details as possible when describing certain characters. But they each they are each going through a very specific problem as it's related to fast growth. Just to give you a really quick example. So one of the characters, for example, her name is Emily. She owns a nonprofit organization, and she actually experienced double-digit growth as a result of appearing on a popular TV show. So as a result of that, she got a lot of press, a lot of attention, and people don't realize that your website can crash as a result of that. If you are on a popular radio show or a popular podcast, or if you are interviewed, let's say on Good Morning America, imagine that. You have to make sure that you have things going on behind the facade or behind the curtain to actually be able to sustain that growth. So that's what each of these stories are. There's a methodology that I've created that you can actually follow to make sure you get your operational infrastructure in place to handle that growth.
That makes so much sense. Yes, I have a friend just like that who was featured on the Today. They were like on the Today Show and MSNBC.
Wow.
They were their own little PR team of one. They were just digging it down and getting those interviews, and then could not handle the volume coming their way. Just weren't set up. From an infrastructure perspective to handle, this is a physical product, so partly digital, people go online and ship their photos and then it gets printed, mass printed, and it just didn't have that infrastructure in place to handle it, so they kind of had to shut it down for a minute.
Oh wow. And see, that's
just so unfortunate.
That's the thing. So we hear all of these statistics about business failure, the failure rate, right? That one out of every 5 businesses will fail within its first 3 years. The statistic that's not talked about is what percentage of businesses that actually make it past their first 5 years fail, not because they don't have enough customers, but because they have too many. And that's the issue that's not really being addressed as it relates to small businesses.
Yeah.
Yes. And years ago, Andrea, I had the benefit of meeting Steb and Graham. And
awesome.
I was volunteering at a conference, and I actually happened to help work with some folks on his book signing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, I felt really badly for him, but I said, wow, this man is incredibly humble and very gracious, because I don't know if I would have had the same reaction, but people were really in line to use him as a way of getting to Oprah,
yes.
right? So they weren't all there for his book,
yeah.
But he was very kind, he was very nice about it. And I'll never forget, there was a woman who presented a bottle of wine to him, and she said, I made this wine from my winery, and she's going on and on and on. And she asked if he wouldn't mind passing that on to Oprah, and he said, look, I can't do that. If I were to pass along everything that people give me on a day-to-day basis onto Oprah, it would just be too much. But he did say something to her that I never forgot. He said, look, I'm more than happy to introduce you to the show's producers, but make sure you are ready. He said, even if you're just on the show for a few seconds, if you're not ready, and what I mean by being ready is make sure your website can handle the has the bandwidth to handle all of the traffic that's going to come to your website. Make sure you can actually fulfill those orders. Just make sure you are ready. And I never forgot that, yes. And so my book can actually be found on Amazon. You can also go to behindthefacadebook.com. It's available on pretty much any online retailer's website. So Barnes & Noble, Books A Million,
very cool.
Different sites, yeah.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. I just have to ask you about one more story.
Okay.
And then we're going for real. And we will plug the book again. But there's one more story. I think you would find this so fascinating. I've been looking into this recently. And it's a company called Greenlee, which their website's still up.
Okay.
But you can actually go back through. They won't see this video, so it won't matter. But you can actually go back through their blog and read the story, see what happened to them. But really, the site is just up now to handle warranty claims and that kind of thing. But they had a really fantastic product. I mean, I would have bought it, and I think companies like this are fascinating. They had a fun, cocktail ring technology, and this was super, not just pedometer, so kind of rivals Fitbit and all of that, but it also gave you little simple LED light alerts for everything from Uber to your email and things like that. So you could get notifications on a simple little ring or a fun piece of jewelry.
Okay.
So it looks like fun cocktailish jewelry, and it's very sparkly and kind of 20s. It's really fun stuff. And I was like, man, this is such a great product, and it was so fantastically engineered. You could go through and see a little technology burrito, they called it, that they put in there. And I was like, oh man, I couldn't believe that it shut down. It was open for 4 years. And I think a very similar thing happened to them. We probably could tell stories for days about companies that this happened to, but fantastic marketing, excellent branding. The engineering was on point, and I think the point where they fell down was supply chain and logistics. They did 4 trips to China where they were getting this technology burrito done.
Okay.
And all of these special jewelry techniques done for this product called Greenlee. I think that's the part where they fell down on was supply chain, because they just weren't able to fulfill orders. I saw at a point where it was there was a 6 to 8 week lead time for you to get your order.
Oh my gosh.
I know, so imagine you order Fitbit and then you had to wait 6 to 8 weeks to get it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because it was just so popular and it was that much of a back order. It was really because the supply chain wasn't there and they didn't, ask their suppliers what's that lead time needed. And, so yeah, it's real. That's what can really happen. It was fantastic product and everything can be set up, but yeah. So anyway, get her book. This is why you need to get Behind the Facade book, behindthefacadebook.com. And then you can also follow Alicia, as she said. We'll link everything here. You can see it in the middle. Yeah, it'll be there. And thank you so much.
Thank
Alicia.
you,
It's been awesome.
Andrea. I always love talking to you.
Yeah.
We can have these conversations for hours.
I know, and we do. I have so much to talk about every time. So hopefully this will not be the last time that she's here. We can bring her back anytime as you like. Be sure to follow us, the ADS Agency, everywhere you are: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe down there. Subscribe to this channel, like this video. And also, if you're listening to this on podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you're listening to, be sure to subscribe to that also. We don't want you to miss this. All right, so we'll see you next time. Have a good one and cheers.